Okay. Can you start a podcast with me, please? I need something to do.
Pastrnak sent it out in front of Malkin to save. They score! Elias Lindholm looks to the heavens.
Here's a chance. Poitras right down and goalie scores. Oh my, what a move by the rookie.
2-on-1. Pastrnak moving in with Marchand. Get into it. Score!
The zone. Hoyle dances in. Backhand. Score!
Lindholm right wing corner. Pastrnak is there. He scores! David Pastrnak wins it for Boston.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of Bruins Tape to Tape. I'm your host this week, Caroline, and I am joined by my lovely co-host, Maria. How's it going, Maria?
Oh, it's going great. It's like it's friggin' pond hockey weather out here because we're all freezing our collective you-know-what's off.
You know it. For our listeners who are watching on YouTube, you can see that I am no longer in sunny California and actually am sporting my Under Armour even inside because it is currently 3 degrees out at my house and it's only getting colder. So
yeah, you're having a heat wave because we're at 16 right now. So
lucky you. Lucky you. Well, in case you forgot that it's winter, it's been quite the reminder this week. But you know, we have a bunch of things to talk about. Even though the Bruins didn't play a ton of games last week, I think they finally had a little bit of a breather, let some other teams across the league actually start to catch up to them, because prior to this past week, I believe the Bruins and only the Pittsburgh Penguins, maybe the Devils, depending on the day, had played the same number of games as them. Otherwise, every other team had games in hand. Some were up to almost 6 games in hand. So we're getting a little bit of a more realistic picture of what those standings actually are right now. And we are now on the other half of the season. And things are meh. That's the only way I can describe them.
I mean, it's difficult to get overly excited this season and during. Yeah, I mean, it's just been a season of challenges, for lack of a better word, for the Boston Bruins. So it's a grind, and they haven't had a grind, and neither as we, frankly, as podcasters and fans, for what seems like at least 2 or 3 seasons. So, you know, I'm sure the rest of the National Hockey League is probably thinking, you know what, have a cup of shut the you-know-what up. And because we've all been there, right?
I know.
We're talking about the Boston Bruins. Which
I'm exhausted.
This is, you know, to some degree, a little bit of, you know, uncharted, frustrating waters.
It's been a while since we've had these kinds of feelings. So I think folks tend to forget what it's actually like to be a Boston Bruins fan. But let's set the table because we do have games and interesting things to talk about. First and foremost, we are seeing a couple of new and interesting things to observe in each of our games. First of all, what has happened with our defense? We've kind of alluded to this recently in the last week or so about a leaky defense. At this point, there's a gigantic hole, and the shots against are out of control. Jeremy Swayman faced in a stretch of 3 games over 120 actual shots on goal. He had 3 games in a row with 40 plus actual shots on net. That is not shot attempts, folks. That is actual shots on goal that he stopped. So while, you know, and we'll talk about him in our stick taps, because he's one that I would give a stick tap to, in spite of everything else. The fact that the man had stopped almost 120 shots is pretty frightening and great. But, you know, those shots against are getting way too high. What do you make of that, Maria? What is going on?
Well, I think a lot of it is due to the fact that, you're missing two significant pieces of your defensive core, and that's Hampus Lindholm and Charlie McAvoy.
Yep.
So I think that might have something to do with the amount of rubber that Jeremy Swayman has had to face. And it seems to have really escalated since McAvoy has dropped out of the lineup. So, no idea what the status or situation is with him. We've seen Hampus Lindholm skating, but he's apparently skating in no contact jersey. So, I think that is some of it. And, I just think it's just part and parcel of what's been happening all season long, in that players don't seem to be communicating with each other. There seems to be a lack of communication amongst forwards to defense and defense to goalies, where, you see this kind of like sometimes deer in the headlights look, where you're, screaming at the television going, is somebody going to take that guy? Somebody going to do something here?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, again, and I don't know if you can point to coaching on that. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Why there's there's a breakdown, and it's been a continuous breakdowns. These breakdowns were happening under Jim Montgomery's watch. We thought things had settled down under Joe Sacco's watch, but then again, Lindholm gets hurt. Now you've got McAvoy hurt, but now we're seeing these breakdowns again.
Yeah. And initially I thought that a lot of these breakdowns had happened prior to Charlie McAvoy being out, because it really started after the holiday break. But the sheer number of shots actually making it to the goaltender has been up since he was out. And you know what? I think, we like to keep ourselves honest. And as much as we have criticized, what Chucky has brought to the ice, on or off the ice, I think this could very well be proof that, he does have value out on that ice. And, we certainly were never saying he's a bum, trade him, he's no good. We were just questioning truly what his direct impact had been. And I think we are getting a better sense of what his impact is on the ice. I don't know. What do you think? Is that has the last week where he's been kind of out and this increase in shots changed your opinion on Charlie McAvoy in any way?
Yes and no. And I know that's, talking out of both sides of my mouth.
Two things can be true at once too, right?
Well, yeah. I do expect more of Charlie McAvoy. Sure. More than just the defensive aspect of his game.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
And we had heard so much about, he's asked to do too much, he's asked to do too much, he's asked to do too much. Okay, so then Don Sweeney goes out and signs, Zadorov, who honestly, I'm starting to wonder about his hockey IQ, honestly. And I don't, I know that it sounds insulting, but there are times where you just, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with the puck? So my expectations for Charlie McAvoy, maybe right or wrong, are at a very high level, both from the impact that I expected him to make defensively or need him to make defensively and to make offensively. When you're paying someone to be your franchise defenseman, I think there's, the full round game component built in there.
Yeah.
I think, again, Hampus Lindholm,
he's another
that's
one.
a big loss on your defensive structure. And Not to mention the fact also, and since we're talking about the defensive core, Brandon Carlo is not having a good year, in my view. Not having a good year, in my view.
No. And unfortunately,
and that's not helping this situation.
No. He's definitely one of the players out there who, and again, we've been talking about this since October. Everybody has been hit with whatever this substandard malaise has been affecting the Boston Bruins.
Yes.
But most players have also at least periodically been able to break away from that and have a couple of games here and there where they're able to kind of get back to how they have played, right? We saw Brad Marchand break out of that. We've seen our goaltenders break out of that a little bit. They might regress a little here and there, but they've had their moments, right?
Right.
We've seen a bunch of the forwards and even the defensemen. Mason Lohrei is one who has taken us on a roller coaster ride, but he's at least has his games. And Brandon Carlo is really still quite struggling. And it's really disappointing for me because 2 years ago, I was very much so on the let's trade Brandon Carlo train. He's not, fulfilling whatever we thought he was going to be. And then all of a sudden, he had 2 really phenomenal years, really being that defensive defenseman that is kind of becoming a little bit of a rarity these days in the league. And now he's kind of back to how he was. And it makes no sense. And I feel bad for him because he does have a skill set that is unique. I certainly don't think that every defensive position should also be coupled with offensive power and presence. I think there's a time and place, and there's certainly positions that should.
I
but there
agree
should
with that.
Be
right, and I would be willing to excuse that from Brandon Carlo if his defensive performance or skill set was on display more regularly. He's got strength. He's got size. He should be wrecking guys. And all we have heard for quite some time now is, well, that's never going to be part of his game. That's not part of his game. It needs to be part of his game. When you're that big on defense, and I'm not saying you need to, wreck every guy that comes in on you, but the fact that we have guys, opposing players, skating through the middle of our ice, challenging both of our goalies night after night after night is a problem. And that's not going to help you win regular season games. And it's certainly not going to help you win playoff games. No. And I don't understand why that can't be a part of his game.
Yeah. I mean, certainly nobody is asking him to fill a role like we've seen.
Not asking you to be Scott Stevens, for Christ's sake.
Or Zadorov even. I mean, him being such a physical bruiser of a guy, but it's a real bummer because we've seen
it's a bummer. Yeah, it pisses me off because to me, right, a defenseman who's got that kind of a stature should be a presence on the ice. There should be some layer of concern when an opposing forward is carrying the puck into our zone.
Yep.
And I don't, and again, it's not exclusive to Brandon Carlo. No. Because when we first saw, what we had on the roster defensively, I think we were all excited.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just us. It was people who are, smarter than we are, who have spent a lot more time.
Yeah. Insiders, experts.
Insiders saying, the Bruins defense is going to be so hard to play against. Yeah, I beg to differ. You see it on occasion. But you don't see it enough and you don't see it consistently.
Yeah. And, to kind of switch gears to the forwards, I have to say, and I can't believe I am saying this after the start that we have had for this season, thank God for the forwards, because we are actually scoring goals. We said this time and time again, pretty much up until the end of December, because we had our defensive structure was really there and very present and was solid. Thank God we had the defense, because, there were plenty of games where if they hadn't shown up, we would have been obliterated because our forwards were not scoring goals. Now we are kind of in opposite world, in bizarro land.
Bizarro land.
And our defense can't, they're basically welcoming people into our zone. But on the flip side, we are now seeing a lot of really good offensive traction from our forwards. I mean, David Pastrnak, it has been just racking up points left and right. He doesn't look exactly the same way. He's not getting those points and those goals in quite the same elite way that we're used to, but he's getting it done. And then, we're seeing some more depth scoring. Vinnie Lettieri, you've made the point that he's making a case for himself to stay. I think you said that in our last snapshot.
Yeah.
Brad Marchand, I think, had 4 points in Monday's game.
And he was a +4, I believe, in that game on Monday.
Yeah. So, how did we suddenly flip from having just no puck luck to all of a sudden, here we go. We can I'm a little hesitant to say we can rely on our forwards just yet, because we've had such a terrible fall, but we've got that going for us.
It just seems when they are able to resolve one aspect of their game, then another aspect of the game ends up paying the price for it.
It's whack-a-mole.
So, yeah, and again, these are probably not problems that are, exclusive to, just for the Boston Bruins. I'm sure that there are many other teams in the league, but we certainly, one of the core components of the Boston Bruins has always been preaching defense.
Right.
And so then when you go out and you bolster your defense and you bring in, guys that have some size, where you're looking at them on paper at the start of the season saying, God, we have, the Boston Bruins have one of the biggest defensive cores in the league, but they have yet to play big.
Yeah.
They've done it on occasion.
Yeah.
But if they did it consistently, maybe Jeremy Swayman wouldn't have to be facing 40+ shots. And again, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I know. I think some of that may be due to having 2 key cogs of that defense out of the lineup right now. So,
yeah,
we can just wait and see. But, the wait and see time is getting shorter and shorter, because the season is marching on. You're struggling to maintain your wild card playoff standing right now, and your schedule isn't going to get any easier.
No. If anything, it's going to be significantly more difficult, because I feel like we have so many divisional games.
Yep.
Those didn't, for whatever reason, with the Bruins schedule, those haven't really happened. They've not had a lot of those, and that's what's really coming up.
We'll get to that divisional game on Saturday night where there was a coaching decision that left me wondering, whoa, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing?
So before we jump into that, kind of continuing on with this new offensive talent, luck, I don't know what, abilities. What do you think of some of these new lines that we have seen? not just actual new line combinations, but also, we are in the thick of the season where we're seeing a lot of guys get injured and they're getting taken out, rightly so, as they should be, because we want to make sure that they're healthy, especially for hopefully later in the season. So, we've got a lot of kids that have been called up. So they have an impact on lines. And then we've also seen some new lines with the kids who have been up for a couple of games. How much of that do you think has an impact on some of that scoring that we've been seing? Is it?
I think it's had a major impact.
Is it a mix? Is it? What is it?
I think it's a mix. I mean, one of the Bruins issues that we have pointed out amongst many other people is that the fact that they got slower. They lost Jake DeBrusk and they got much slower, right?
Yes.
And so, injecting some youth into the roster has been helpful. Matt Poitras has looked really good, and I think his speed and his smart hockey IQ has helped propel the 2 goals that Charlie Coyle scored the other night were a direct result of Matt Poitras being able to make his way into the neutral zone, right? And make his way in there relatively quickly. Right?
He's so fast.
And you know what? You got a guy on your line that's busting his ass to make his way into either the offensive or defensive zone. Don't you think that's going to prompt his line mates to do the same?
Yes.
I mean, it's just a little bit of common sense, right? It doesn't take a lot of hockey IQ to figure that out. And again, why it's taken as long as it's taken to bring Matt Poitras up. I'm hoping that he stays for an extended period of time, particularly if it rejuvenates Charlie Coyle and Brad Marchand. Then leave him where he is. Now,
100%.
What's troubling is that you took Elias Lindholm, who you're paying a shit ton of money to, and you bumped him down to a third line center, which likely, right? People are saying, oh, this is great. You paid this guy like a first line center, blah. Okay. You know what? It is. Listen, is it your money? Okay. Is it your money?
No.
Who cares? Right.
But we all need a break sometimes. Right. Take us off that crazy project.
He clearly needs to get going, and he needs to get going in a consistent manner. So, and he's talked about it himself. Elias Lindholm has. He wants to contribute. He wants to be, a major component of this team's success. But for some reason, hasn't clicked yet for him. So if that means he can get some, jump to his game by being on the third line, so be it at this point. I really don't give a crap who plays where. No. We need to win games.
100%. 100%. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more specifically about that and the San Jose game, and then also a little bit of the Ottawa Senators game and the benching that you have referenced a little bit later when we talk about what's happened specifically with the Bruins. But I just want to pivot a little bit and just let's go quickly around the rink, because again, the Bruins don't exist in a vacuum. And it's good to keep an eye out on things that are happening around the league. So this should come as a surprise to nobody. But David Pastrnak was named the third star of the week. That is very well earned. He's again turned a page and racking up those points.
Turn the page. Thank God.
Thank God. And I got to tell you, I was at the game on Monday, and it's always hard to really know what folks see on TV and what is actually happening, because when you're there, you see all these things, right, that are happening that are not necessarily on camera. And so I'm messaging everyone in the Discord and I'm saying, Pasta looks really good. Like, he looks really good. Like, he is locked in and he looks crisp. Is that showing up on TV? Because I'm seeing all these things that he's doing when he doesn't have the puck. And, everyone on the Discord was saying, no, he looks good. And then so to hear that he's been named 3rd star of the week, I'm like, yes, I think he is finally kind of moved on and is getting into a better place offensively. So super excited. Anytime a Boston Bruin is named a star of the week, but Pasta has definitely earned that and needed that this season. Apparently the fire sale in Pittsburgh continues, although it's a little bit unusual that it's been kind of quiet. But once again, it's been made known that certain players are basically up for grabs in Pittsburgh. And this time it's Erik Karlsson, which I think, for me, not a particular surprise, on top of the Tristan Jarry being put on waivers.
Did you see his plus minus?
I did not. What is his how bad?
It's pretty fucking bad. Again. It's pretty freaking bad again. Because he's so focused on offense. Yeah. I don't know if he even plays any defense.
That's the thing, right? When
you talk about this,
it's been. Let's put it this way: he has this reputation that he's a minus 14. I think I just saw right now.
Yeah.
Which is just
pretty bad.
And you're a defenseman. But I think that was kind of something that was really discussed when he won the Norris Trophy a couple of years ago. And everyone's like finally having that whole conversation of, okay, well, what is the Norris Trophy actually supposed to be? Because it's not actually for the most offensive defenseman, right? We've made that case on this podcast for years at this point. You want an offensive defenseman, just like you have a defensive forward, make a Bobby Orr trophy and call it that. The Norris Trophy, it seems, is written vaguely enough that who wins it is very dependent on who the writers are, who are casting their votes. And so it kind of came up when he won a couple years ago, because they're like, he's going to win it because he has the most points, but he's a terrible defenseman.
Right.
And then he got this big deal in Pittsburgh, pretty much off of the fact that he won the Norris Trophy.
Right.
And so this is not a surprise to anyone that this has happened.
And Pittsburgh has floated out there that if there are any takers, that they would consider a salary retention, because how else are they going to get him off their payroll? So, the reports that I have read have indicated that Kyle Dubas is going to pick up the phone and listen to offers on anybody except for Crosby. They've got a couple of young players whose name escapes me right now, and perhaps even Malkin. But the rest of the roster is up for grabs.
Yeah. And the same, I had a very similar, not surprised reaction when we heard that Tristan Jarry was put on waivers, because when they had, he's, in my opinion, has always been I don't want to say he's a subpar goaltender, because obviously if you make it to be a starting goaltender in the NHL, you obviously have some level of talent, right?
Right.
But of the 32 teams and the 60 some odd goalies who play every year, not a starting goalie in my mind, not a particularly great backup goalie, secondly. And so when Pittsburgh had signed him to an extension for 5 years, my immediate reaction at that time was, that's insane. They must just be desperate and have nobody else. And then, just a couple years into that contract, putting him on waivers. So needless to say, things might be difficult as a Boston Bruins fan. At least we're not Pittsburgh fans, because that would be really hard.
And again, I love the Schadenfreude of this Pittsburgh Penguins, because you know, the stamp of the Pittsburgh Penguins is very similar to the stamp of the Boston Red Sox right now. And they share the same owner. Share the same owner. So, good luck, Pittsburgh Penguins fans. I sympathize.
Yeah.
I sympathize with you right now in terms of the direction that your hockey team may or may not be going in under the ownership of John Henry.
Exactly. Yep. And speaking of Schadenfreude, I think there's probably a large number of people who are hockey fans across the league who are pissed and confused, and the majority of us who are surprisingly pleased at the fact that Connor McDavid received a 3-game suspension for his, I'm going to call them childish antics on the ice.
Cross-check to the face.
Well,
okay?
Yes, because, and here's the thing, the number of people, and I don't know if you've seen this on Twitter, Maria, you're the Twitter person. I man the threads and the Mastodon and the Blue Sky spaces. So different audiences. But I was seeing this on my end, and I'm sure you probably saw this as well from either Edmonton fans or just McDavid fans saying, well, you're not talking about what happened the 30 seconds prior. Okay, first of all,
matter.
First of all, you all missed that lesson growing up. 2 wrongs don't make a right. Right? Okay.
And the ref's going to call right. Now, Grant, should there likely have been a penalty call?
Yes.
Before it got to that point. Okay.
100% failure on
Connor Garland was basically mugging McDavid.
Yeah,
you can't late in the game. You know, you've got an empty net. You know, you're trying to tie the game or win the game, whatever the case may be. However, that doesn't excuse the fact, and I don't care whose name is on the jersey. Okay. That is the kind of crap that has no place in the game of hockey.
Right.
I don't care if you're Connor McJesus or, Sidney Crosby or Alexander Ovechkin or Brad Marchand. You cross-check someone to the face and you're stupid enough to do it in front of the official who's standing right there. You deserve to be suspended.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, a cross-check to the head is quite plainly written in the rule books. There are plenty of rules, as we have discussed, that are vaguely written and very much so up to interpretation, but that one absolutely is not. We saw it happen to Mark Kastelik against Tampa Bay, and we saw what happened, right? Yeah. We lost him for a couple of games.
Yes.
So,
and nothing happened. There was no,
I know.
Again.
So,
right. So if anybody can speak to this.
Yeah, we've seen.
Okay. We can, because we have been on the receiving end of players on the Boston Bruins roster who have had this shit done to them with no disciplinary action being given to the opposing player. Yes. Yet we have Brad Marchand, who, if he so much as looks the wrong way at a player, right? Everyone in the league wants him, suspended for, in perpetuity, which is, so the rules apply across the board, folks.
And I think I could be remembering the incident incorrectly, but I'm pretty sure 2 seasons ago when the Bruins were playing, I want to say the Florida Panthers, Charlie McAvoy received a number of days suspension for something I think actually quite similar with a stick to the head in some way. So, the Bruins have done it too. So we've seen both sides
and been punished, and they take their punishment. And yes, Do we have fans who, try to take up for their team? Okay, I get it. Right. And I know he's Connor McDavid, and I know he's the greatest player in the world, but that doesn't mean that what he did was clean, because it wasn't.
It doesn't excuse whatever Connor Garland did to him. It doesn't excuse it.
No.
Like, it doesn't matter. It's like the time that Brad Marchand, speaking of Tristan Jarry, speared the goaltender, and you're like, damn it,
dummy. You big dummy.
It doesn't matter what Jarry was saying to him.
Right,
it doesn't matter that he was, chirping him all night. Like, you can't do that. So we've enjoyed that a little bit. And then the last piece of news is actually some sad news. You want to talk a little bit about Tom McVie and his passing?
Oh, yeah. The Bruins lost, by all accounts, a very wonderful and dedicated individual who has been their hockey ambassador for 30 plus years. And sadly, the news broke of his passing during the game on Monday. And I believe he was 89 years old.
Yep, he was up there.
So, and we've heard nothing but glowing testaments about what a great contributor he was to the sport of hockey, but also what a great person he was. So our condolences go out to his family and friends.
Yeah. Yep. They lost a giant. That's for sure. All right. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about really only 2 games, but there's a lot to talk about and things that we saw during those 2 games right after a word from our sponsors.
Playoffs. We're talking about playoffs. You bet we are. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Scoring touchdowns is key to winning in the playoffs, and you can score big by betting on them at DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like a player to score 6. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
So, welcome back. One of our favorite traditions that has kind of happened organically in our Discord group has been, if you go to a Bruins game, we find each other, we say hello in person, which doesn't always happen every single game. Some folks live nearby, some a little bit further away. And so, like I said, on Monday, I had the opportunity to go to the San Jose game, and I saw it, my family and I saw a friend of the pod. And so I thought I'd ask his opinion and his hot takes. So take a listen. Hey, Bees fam. I'm at the Sharks game on Monday, and I'm actually here with friend of the pod, Jacob. Hey, Jacob.
How's it going?
It's going. It's pretty cold outside, but I'm excited to see this team, especially after their pretty disappointing game against the Ottawa Senators. Do you think they can come back, and what are you looking for in today's game?
I certainly hope they can come back from that game, especially against the Sharks, but with how things have gone on recently, I wouldn't be surprised if we lose 3-1 and Macklin Celebrini goes off. That'd be fun to watch.
I love the optimism for this team. I feel like that's the roller coaster that we've been on, but I'm also excited to see Macklin, and I feel like regardless, it's going to be a win-win day for us because we get to see a future phenom. So hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have some good things to talk about. Otherwise, we will be crying on Wednesday. I love getting together with the Bruins fam, and we are not crying, so that's a good thing. Although he wasn't wrong about the 3 goals.
We were close. We were close going into that third period against San Jose.
Oh my goodness. But we'll talk a little bit more about San Jose because some interesting things happened there with the lines and what was going on the ice. But let's just take a quick step back and talk a little bit about Ottawa, your hot takes, how you felt that game went, and let's talk about that coaching decision that you brought up actually in your most recent visit with the Greg Hill show. And how did you think it went? Because that was tough. That was a tough game. It would have been entertaining if not for the outcome for me.
Well, first of all, you had a 2-goal lead going into the third period, and you coughed it up.
Yeah.
Right? So that in and of itself is a characteristic of this team that has been perpetuated for years and years and years. The, inability to protect a lead, particularly when everyone, I'm sure, was well aware of the playoff standing and point standings implications of that particular game.
Mm-hmm.
And Ottawa is a young and up-and-coming team. They are knocking on the door of
Sure are.
the hard spot, right?
Yep.
The door, the Bruins let them through the door. Let's face facts on Saturday. The Bruins let them through that door. Now, while the game itself was very entertaining, it was very spirited.
Yep.
Right. You could tell by the way that players on both teams were dealing with pretty much every aspect of the game that they understood how important of a 2 points it was for
100%.
that game.
Yep.
Which is why when I saw Brad Marchand nowhere near the ice in the overtime, and I thought to myself, are we really doing this? Now, this is me, okay? He apparently has talked about it yet again. He's had to talk about many things he probably hasn't wanted to talk about this season, right? They apparently had a conversation with each other. They're good with it. Marchand understands why. You know what? If that's me and I'm the captain of the team and I know I'm one of the better players on the team and I know that I'm one of the players that are counted on to play defensively, put the puck in the net, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
I'm goddamn pissed.
Yeah.
That I'm not out on the ice in an overtime to gain that critical extra point in the standings. Right. And I don't understand the mentality anymore of why we're picking and choosing who we're going to single out on this goddamn team. Because now again, I understand you're pissed off about the fact that Marchand was standing there, didn't make a play.
Yeah.
That led to, I think it was the tying goal. Okay. But has he been the only one that's done that all fucking season long?
No.
That you pick that moment, Coach Sacco, that moment to bench your captain?
Right.
To send a message? What? To who? Because as far as I can see, not many other players on this team are being held accountable are being sat
Right.
when they do similar things. So I found that to be head scratching and frankly, utterly ridiculous.
Yes, I agree. At this point, maybe the first time that it happened, and granted, that was under Jim Montgomery, but Sacco was right there next to him on that bench, right? Maybe it made sense the first time that it happened. Maybe if it was part of a strategy, right? Where you saw, okay, we're benching the captain. Anybody else do something that's stupid? Don't think that we won't do it because we've just done it to this guy who I would argue has never, ever in his career ever been considered a liability on the ice outside of his shenanigans as a young
His nonsense. Right.
current iteration.
Yeah.
Current iteration of Brad Marchand as a skilled player, he is not a liability on the ice, right? And I would say if others had been benched to this point, okay, you just go and circling back around because it's all part of the strategy, right? At this point, we have seen of your top 6 players, because again, with your bottom 6 players, when you have maybe a higher stakes situation, you're just not going to play them, right? Like that's just how that's a coaching strategy. That's normal. That's nothing personal, right? David Pastrnak is the only other person on this team in the top 6 who has been benched. And that game, he deserved being benched for the rest of that period. But guess what? He played further down the line, right? So if you're pissed at Brad Marchand as a coach for that moment where that tying goal happened, fine. So have him sit for the rest of the period. But you mean to tell me that one of the hardest working players who he knew what he did wrong.
Yes.
You think he's going to make that same mistake in overtime, knowing that this game is a must win? Because I'm sorry, I'm going to disagree with Andrew Raycroft and say this game did freaking matter. This game mattered.
Every
Because
freaking point matters.
they're not in the playoffs. And we saw what happened last season after the CBA break. They never got their legs back, and they were only able to make it to the playoffs because they had so many points racked up from the fall.
How many game-winning goals do you think Brad Marchand has in his career? I'd say
a lot.
I'd say he's got a lot, right? And I get picking and choosing your spots, but to me, that was the wrong spot.
Charlie Coyle has played every game, 100%. And I'm a huge,
and so is Charlie McAvoy. Other than an injury, all right, has he been spot on every single game?
Right. How many times does
let me get this straight. So to date, we've had the captain, being benched, who's got a letter. David Pastrnak, who also has a letter, has been benched. Yet our franchise defenseman, who's had his inconsistencies as well, his share of boo-boos as well.
Nothing.
What's wrong with this picture? So and again, it sounds like, sour grapes, and then I'm being, a whiny bitch, but, right?
But him of all players.
And in that moment, now I get it. It's a regular season game. It's not a playoff game, but Jesus Christ, you just coughed up a 2-goal lead and you need the extra point. Yet you keep him on the bench
Yep.
for the entirety of that over. I just.
How many times, Maria, have we said this season, especially in the fall when things were looking real dire, how many times did we say that Brad Marchand was personally putting this team on his back, pull them from the brink of disaster?
Right.
Because he was the only one out there trying to will this team to win.
Do you think Mike Sullivan would have benched Sidney Crosby in that same situation?
Absolutely not.
Okay. So I just don't understand the depths to which we are having to sink in order to get messages to other players. Do we not have the ability to go directly to these players and have these conversations saying, you can't be doing that shit out on the ice? Okay. This is what my expectation is. And maybe this is happening. Okay. We're not in a locker room. We can only opine to how we feel about what we see happening on the ice. And all I am saying to our audience is, if that was me and I've got the C or an A, and because I've made a mistake, I don't touch the ice in an entire overtime period or in a period where my team needs me, then I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
Now, am I pissed off at myself? Likely so.
Sure.
But I'm also going to be pissed off at the people who are keeping me on the bench. That's just me. That's just me.
Yeah. It just seems like there is no strategy behind this action, because I'm also not seeing a fire get lit under anyone else. Because I don't know, is that what the message is supposed to be?
I think so.
You're not better than the
how else can
captain?
we interpret what that message is? You are no better than the captain. If I'm going to do and again, maybe that's the relationship that he and Joe Sacco have, right? Which is fine. If you're amenable to that, and that's how you guys roll for how you want to lead and, develop these young players. Okay. I'm just speaking from my perspective.
Right.
And as a fan, that it pissed me off when you're trying to win a game that he's sitting on the bench.
Right. And for me, that's the part that's the most infuriating piece, right? Because obviously we don't know their relationship. We don't know what happens in the back room. But what I can say as a fan is, why on earth would you disregard arguably one of the greatest resources that the Bruins have right now? He's your second highest goal scorer. He was your first up until like a week ago. He has tons of points. And we know his work ethic, that he would not go back out there and make the same kind of mistake. Like, you just turn the page and you move on. What I have seen, I think, be more impactful on the team has been some of these line changes and switch ups. So to kind of pivot to the San Jose game, I think what was more impactful was the fact that we saw the Coyle, Marchand, Poitras line out there, because, whether it's the young kid has some of that youth and exuberance and he's like, I'm here and I want to do my best, but also him being around these guys more and showing these veteran players in Coyle and Marchand, I can keep up with you. And they're now growing and developing that level of trust that they can then play to their ultimate skill set, because, they're not being held back by uncertainty if Poitras can keep up with them. Right. And we saw, maybe the first and the second periods were not great. I mean, first was okay. The second period was horrific.
They were not. The Bruins were not good in the first two periods of that game. It wasn't until the third period that they started playing with some urgency and intensity and recognizing, shit, we're down 3-2 to the San Jose Sharks. No disrespect to the Sharks.
Right.
But, everybody in the league knows they're in basically full rebuild mode. Yes. They've got some really good young talent. Mm-hmm. And how awesome was it for Will Smith to score his first goal with 150 family and friends in the building? He's, local kid from Lexington, Massachusetts. But, it took that trio until the third period to get it going because Scott McLaughlin, who is one of the hosts of the Skate Pod and also writes for WEEI, had put out a tweet that after 2 periods, that line of Poitras, Coyle, and Marchand was getting outshot by a significant amount.
What was interesting from my perspective, and again, when you go to a game, you see so much more than somebody on TV. And so I had to do another gut check with the Discord group because watching those 3 on the ice, I think was very different than what limited view folks on TV saw. Because yes, I'm not disagreeing. Like, obviously stats are stats. They were getting outshot. It wasn't working out. But there was something else there. There was I don't even know how to describe it. A drive, a desire to make it happen that we don't see with other lines sometimes, other combos of lines. Like, they wanted it. And it wasn't quite happening. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Maria, obviously Marchand and Coyle have been playing together now for a couple of seasons. But this was, I think, the first time that we saw the 3 of them on the top line together. Right? This was a huge promotion game.
This was a good task of Matt Poitras.
Yes.
And it was a big test for him.
Yes.
And he passed the test very well. And he was also good defensively.
Yes.
Because that would have shown itself.
Job.
Right. It was a big, right.
And I think based on kind of what I was personally witnessing on the ice, and then hearing about, what you guys were seeing from this other perspective, like, I feel like we always just need to now have someone at the game. So somebody always go to every game so we can have both perspectives, because this changes completely how you understand the games that are happening in front of you. But what I think I was ultimately witnessing was 2 periods of these guys kind of almost feeling each other out, almost like Marchand and Coyle, because again, they're veterans who have specifically played together for at least 2 seasons now, maybe still trying to get a feel for what can Poitras handle from us, right? What can he do? And, they're doing that in a game. So you're doing a lot. And I think what we ultimately saw was the fact that maybe after 2 periods, they were like, I think we can trust this kid. And they just went all out and it worked, right? Now, kind of on the flip side, where I think Poitras was able to be so successful because he was partnered with 2 veteran skilled players, again, who knew each other and then felt like they could trust him.
And who are both very defensively responsible.
What you then what you saw happen with Lindholm, I don't want to call it a demotion, but it kind of was a demotion to the third line. Yes, he is having his own issues and challenges and struggles, but he also, as a center, is not properly flanked, right? He for whatever reason, the lines that he has been on, first line and second line, there's something missing there to appropriately support him and build that kind of trust and chemistry, right? In the same way that Poitras, so we saw kind of 2 sides of that, where here's a kid who was put in a position and was able to kind of safely get to that next level because he had these guys there for him. And Lindholm doesn't have that, right? Because we are still very much so struggling with the right combination with our wingers. Even David Pastrnak is, I think, again, back to our issues with roster construction, experiencing that lack of appropriate support, right?
Yes.
He's had his moments with Zacha. They definitely click more often than not.
Yeah.
But he does not also have the appropriate support. So, it was kind of an interesting dichotomy of whatever the hell happened there in Ottawa, and whatever messaging you think you were sending from a coaching staff perspective, which I think just didn't do anything. And I think that the line changes were more impactful. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, definitely for the likes of Coyle and Marchand, particularly for Charlie Coyle. Like, Charlie Coyle is not having anywhere near as productive goal-wise, scoring-wise, point-wise season as he did last year.
Yeah.
And that's, again, it's hurting him, and it's hurting the team. So to that end, where you see him score 2 really good, impactful goals, because
almost a third. They tried.
Right, and that's the kind of player he can be, right? Yes. That's the kind of player you need him to be. Excuse me, I need to cough. Hold on a moment.
Well, I will say, and I think I'm not in the minority when I say this, because Charlie McAvoy has been out for the last couple of games. Charlie Coyle has worn that A on his sweater, and he was one that I thought was going to have it to begin with.
He should have. Again, that's a whole other conversation. He should have had it to begin with. I agree.
Over either of them. I don't know. I don't know why, but that's always been my vibe. I've watched enough Bruins hockey that I would like to think that that's not just some sort of, bullshit. It just feels right. I don't know. I
would really wish he didn't have to give it back. Lines. I would like to see the lines that played in the San Jose game, given the opportunity to marinate a little bit before you start moving. So, to refresh everyone's memories, the lines for that game were Poitras centering Coyle and Marchand, Zacha centering Pastrnak and Geekie. And I'll tell you, Morgan Geekie, he's been,
he's doing the work.
He's doing the work. He's doing the work.
Yep.
Third line, Elias Lindholm centering Vinnie Lettieri and Wahlstrom. Now, I know people are very troubled by that, very aggravated by the fact, you've paid Lindholm as, a top line center.
Didn't he score, though? He scored a goal, I think, didn't he?
It was an empty net goal.
Whatever. He got it. He did it, right?
And then your fourth line has Beecher centering Kastelik and Brazeau. Now, Kastelik did not see the ice in the third period of the game, nor was he on the bench for the third period of that game. So I don't know if there's a new injury or if it's something residual left over from the Tampa Bay game. I don't know what his status is.
I didn't see anything obvious, and he certainly wasn't involved.
No, and I don't think anyone who was calling the game saw anything obvious either. They just were able to note that, he's not on the bench for the third period, nor did he come out for the third period. So, maybe hopefully it was just something that was somewhat precautionary on the part of the Bruins. But, if he's not able to go, not sure who,
They've called some guys up. I mean, I would like to point out someone who wasn't there. And I didn't know at the start of the game because you don't hear all the extra stuff that you guys get to hear. So I didn't know it was just because of illness. I was doing a little jig because there was somebody who wasn't in the lineup. And I was like, finally, They finally did it?
No.
They finally scratched him?
He was sick. Only because he was sick. And we're talking about Trent Frederick, folks. We're talking about Trent Frederick. You know,
and I have to imagine if he's back in the next game, I don't know who sits. Wallstrom? I don't know.
Probably Wallstrom.
Which is too bad because
I would guess Wallstrom would sit.
But he's fast.
No kidding.
Fast, and he's another one. If he had the proper support, a really good center, I think that he
or the opportunity that you're giving Morgan Geekie, which is more reps, more playing time.
With a good center.
Not to the detriment of the team, right? I get it. Not to the detriment of the team.
Yeah.
However, you know, you brought this kid Wallstrom in from the New York Islanders, and you've already scratched him on a couple of occasions. So it's like, Donnie, what the hell? Like, what are we doing here?
I would really like to see him again with Elias Lindholm, because I do think that Elias Lindholm is a good center, you know, and I think he is better than a third line center. Whatever's going on, is going on, right? And I think, you know, him partnered with Wallstrom, I think they would be good together for multiple reasons. And I would hate to see that get tossed against New Jersey, because this is a big game. New Jersey is one of the best teams in the East. They finally found, if you listened to our snapshots episode from this week after the San Jose game, like I said, the Devils have finally found their secret sauce, because we know that they've been struggling with goaltending for a couple of years. They've got Markstrom. They got a couple of really great goal scorers. Like, this is going to be a really big test, and you want them to do super well. So if Monday worked fine, I mean, I wouldn't say great because they only had one really great period, but like someone like Wallstrom, he's young, he's fast. How many times do we see him crash the net? How many times do we see him getting shots on goal? And like, you know, it's just a puck luck issue.
And I would like to see
Frederick again.
I think Vinnie Lettieri's earned the right to stay in the lineup until he gives you a reason not to stay in the lineup. Okay. Right. So, and again,
that line scored. So tell me why that line should change.
It shouldn't. And so if you've got a system that's working, or you've got a lineup that's working, I'm sorry, Freddie, you were sick. Okay. But this is working for us right now. So you're going to need to sit and wait.
Yep. Yeah. So we shall see what happens. You know, we had quite a very short 2-game week, but still quite a week. I mean, we have plenty to talk about. It was a lot of stuff that was going on. So to wrap things up, let's talk overall stick taps, overall penalty box, who's getting penalty minutes from this week. So stick taps, what have you got, Maria?
I have Charlie Coyle, right? If he can continue where he left off against San Jose, that is going to be a very, very good thing for this team. And, you know, we talked about this before. We like seeing him rocking the letter on his jersey. I think he should have had it given to him permanently at the start of the season, but we don't get to make those decisions, nor does anyone ask us for our opinion.
Right.
In those decisions. Mason Lohrei has played pretty well. Pretty well in Charlie McAvoy's absence. And if I remember correctly, in the San Jose game, he logged about 23 minutes of ice time. They were pretty hard minutes. Those were not easy minutes. So it seems like, you know, he's flourishing a bit without Big Brother potentially watching him, so to speak. I don't know if that could be some of it, but you know, I like the trajectory that Lohrei has been on. Jeremy Swayman still, you know,
say what you will about
he's
some
straightening
of his
himself
mistakes.
out. Maybe he's settling down. I still think sometimes there's his puck management leaves a lot to be desired. Number
He's
one.
no Lena Solmark when it comes
No.
to the stick handling.
Number two, Jeremy, I know you want to fight somebody, but cut the shit and just pay attention to what's going on around your net and where the rubber is.
Yep.
Never mind about trying to mix it up with someone. Or never mind about trying to score a goal. Do the right thing with the flipping puck. Because and I could say that to any number of players on the Bruins roster this season. Okay.
But focus on your job because he's doing his job.
Right. And you're getting yourself into number one goalie. Right. That's what we wanted you to be. My only concern is, and we'll put that in as part of maybe our penalty box is, Korpisalo sometimes looks a little rusty. And so,
it was another 10
getting a little
10
bit
days.
more. Should he be getting a little bit more of a workload? I don't know. I'm asking you the question. I'm asking it rhetorically, but he took the blame for at least a couple of those goals in San Jose that he said, that's on me. I should have had those goals. And maybe he's right. That's very big of him to not throw, his teammates under the bus.
Right.
But that is an overall penalty box concern for me. Is the lack of communication between the goalies and the players on the ice when they're in our zone, and they need to play with urgency. Every period. You can't take, if they haven't learned by now that they can't take any periods off, then none of us can help them.
No,
they can't be helped.
No, they cannot be helped. I agree. I would say, to piggyback off of some of the stick taps, again, we've mentioned this in our snapshots when we're talking about the position of goaltender. Unlike other positions where you want all your guys to kind of be going at a pretty good level early on, you don't want that with your goaltender. I mean, obviously you don't want them to be terrible at the start of the season, but you do want to see them progressively get better and better and better. And, say what you will about a game where Jeremy Swayman is letting in 5 goals. But you have to remember the number of shots that he has been facing. And so seeing his save percentage continue to creep upward makes me feel good about where he will land come April. Should the Bruins get into the playoffs, he will be in his peak place. So that's good. He's not, expending too much extra energy by being super awesome right now. Because at this point, because of how bad the defense is, I would rather him not be standing on his head every single night, because then he's not going to have anything left come April. So you got to find the right balance there. And I agree. I think I don't know what the right answer is in terms of goalie management. Was Korpisalo, I think, a little rusty? I think so before the start of this game. I think he had a little bit of rust in the last game that he played, which was like 2 weeks ago, pretty much 10 days ago. So I don't love that. And if he doesn't have a super solid team in front of him to let him kind of get his legs under him, then we're going to have a rough night. And the defense, I'm personally putting Brandon Carlo and Nikita Zadorov into that.
I had Brandon Carlo in there, and then I saw that you added Zadorov.
I added
and
Zadorov.
I would agree with you. And again, it's not exclusive to them.
Right.
We've seen some other hiccups, but those are your 2 big boys right now.
Yeah.
Not sadly, but they're your 2 big boys right now with McAvoy and Lindholm, Hampus being out of the lineup, and the level of play needs to ratchet up. It needs to. These two guys need to set the defensive tone that everyone else needs to follow and should follow.
Yeah.
And can I add to that?
Mm.
The freaking turnovers need to stop. Like it. I know turnovers happen in a game, but Jesus Christ. It seems like whenever we make a turnover, the puck winds up in the back of our net at the most inopportune freaking time.
Right. And that kind of, again, begs the question, well, where the heck was the defenseman?
Mm-hmm.
Why were they not prepared? For me, with Zadorov, we didn't talk too much about him. We already kind of aired our grievances about Brandon Carlo and why he's getting some PIMs from us. But for me, the number of times this season, and again, Zadorov, when he's good, he's great. There's a ton of value in his physicality and his ability to stop players. But sometimes
his decision making. I don't know if he doubts himself or he isn't able to make a decision quick enough. But sometimes you wonder, like, let's go here. Let's go. You got to do something.
I find, and I noticed this in the game on Monday, the number of times I've said that he breaks the fundamental rule of defensive play, not just for defensemen, but for any player. You do not play the puck, you play the man. Don't stand there and watch the puck all the way in that far corner. You play the man who is clearly behind you that you have forgotten about, standing right there at the corner of your crease, ready to take that puck when it comes around the net.
And wasn't one of the things we heard about him when it was first talked about him joining the Bruins is that he sometimes doesn't take coaching well?
Yeah.
So,
who knows what that's about?
Who knows what that's about, or if there's validity to that. But, we see the lack of decision-making or appropriate decision-making with him. Unfortunately, one too many times during the course of a game and during the course of this season. So those are the kinds of things that, they'll kill you in a regular season game and they'll knock you out of the playoffs in a quick
100%.
goddamn hurry.
100%. Well, Maria, we've got a few games. We've actually got 4 games between now and our next full-length episode. So it's going to be a real busy week. Make sure you are liked and subscribe on all of our different podcast listening platforms so you don't miss any of our snapshots, because that's going to be the quickest, fastest way to hear all of our hot takes. We've got the New Jersey Devils. They're playing them for the first time this season down in New Jersey. They come right back up for a home and away. They are at home against the Ottawa Senators for the 3rd time. And as I said in our most recent snapshot, they damn well better win that game.
Yep.
And then they are hosting the Colorado Avalanche on Saturday. And then it's another quick trip out. So they got 2 back-to-back games, actually, a home and away back-to-back. They head out to Buffalo, which they damn well better win that game as well, because it's the Buffalo Sabres. So,
points.
They have to stay on it.
And something to look out for, guys, fans, listeners, is what Sacco is going to do with the goaltenders on these back-to-back games tomorrow night. And these are both big games against both the Devils and the Senators.
Mm-hmm.
Do you play Jeremy Swayman back-to-back? Do you give one game to each goalie? I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see. In the past, we've never had to ask this question because
it's been a long time.
Swayman, Lindholm, Swayman,
Ullmark,
Lindholm, Ullmark, right? But now it's like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do?
I don't know. I would like to personally see them split both of them. I think just because of the sheer number of shots that Jeremy Swayman has faced, you gotta do some maintenance. You got to make sure, like, yes, I know he
But
wants that.
But he could do back-to-back.
He could do one of the back-to-backs.
He could do
He should not
the
do all of them.
back-to-backs this week because they're home on Thursday night. Thursday night. They have the 24th off. They're at home. They
Saturday
play an
matinee
afternoon game against Colorado. So you could kind of, get your energy level back up again. But I'll just be curious to see how the coaching staff handles this and what decision they make.
Yep, absolutely. Well, as always, thank you, Maria. To our listeners, make sure you rate and review the podcast to help us reach more listeners. We appreciate your feedback on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, of course. Please find us on all of our socials. We're pretty much everywhere you could possibly find us. Tape to Tape MK, or you could find Maria and myself on various podcasts or social media platforms. But any other final parting words, Maria?
I just wanted to give a quick thanks to my friends on the Greg Hill Morning Show at WEEI for letting me give our little podcast a plug during one of my regular calls. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely. And as always, go Bees!
Go Bees!